Welcome to our DrivenCRM reporting webinar this afternoon. Today we're going to be discussing creating basic reports within Driven, how to control access to them, and modifying and exporting them to Excel. One of the prerequisites for this is that in order to initially set up and create reports, you must be an administrator level person or someone who has access under the Options and Utilities menu to our reporting center. So first, as that prerequisite, let's talk about how roles affect reporting, because when we create a report within Driven, I'll go ahead and click here as if I'm creating a brand new report. One of the options for us is to be able to assign what access roles are able to see and run this particular report. Okay, so if I make something available to the marketing access role only, then only administrator level people or people who have marketing assigned to their access role would have the capability to see and run this report. Okay. An option for you in creating any report is also to make it a general access report, and in that case then any user who is logging into DrivenCRM would be able to see and run this report. So that is how important roles are in controlling access to this. And the roles themselves are established here in your main Driven screen under Options and Utilities, in Company Preferences, under each employee setup. So as I have my employee setup here, I have my own setup for Barb Fiddler. I am set to be an administrator, so I have access to any report that gets created. Okay, and I have the following roles assigned to me. I have no roles currently. So these would control what kinds of things I can see and run on different reports. Very important for controlling who gets to see certain types of reports within Driven. All right, so let's close out of that employee setup screen. Wanted to address that really quickly. Now, as I'm generating a new report within Driven, the first thing I'm going to be asked to do is to give this a report title. So we'll call this Customers in Florida. I'd like to see a report for all of my customers currently that exist within the state of Florida. So I put that title there. I'm going to give this access to the sales role and all of my service people, let's say. Okay. I put a report into a category. This is used for grouping and organizing and keeping your reports kind of organized. So we will modify this and we'll add a customer as a report category. So we'll add that to the list. We'll save those changes. And I can pick that this goes into the customer category on reports. The multi-user report type is another option to give you the capability to prevent others from seeing this report, because I can establish a report that's maybe my own individual information. I don't want anybody else to be able to see or run this report. So I'm able to mark the report as personal, and then my login is the only one that can see and use this report, no matter what other options I've set and established for it. Information here about whether or not you want your company logo to appear at the top of the report every time you run it, and your company address information. If these are view-only type of internal reports, I don't typically put this on here, but if this might be something you want to present or show or print to give to a client or potential customer, then you might want to include your logo and company information at the top of it. It's available to you if you'd like. Simply set that to yes, and then whatever is defaulted or downloaded as your company logo will appear at the top of this report. First option that we're going to have to choose for this report is what type of data are you looking for. This identifies what area of Driven is going to pull this information. So options for you are all contacts, which contacts are your CRM qualified individuals within Driven. All leads, if you want to pull up any lead that's in the database and filter it in some way. The communications information, as we refer to it, these are phone calls and emails and the kind of information that shows up under the communications menu of a lead or an account. So they're linked to both leads and accounts. Similar concept with follow-ups. If you've established or set any follow-ups within Driven to be completed, you can report on those. Show me all uncompleted follow-ups or something like that might be an example. There is a contracts area within the software for recurring contract service type of information, as well as a contacts, which is just basic general information about the individual, not the entire company that is listed within Driven. Okay, so specific to that person. Next area is our work orders. These are our service contracts or support work orders that are in Driven. You can filter and report on those in any way. The quotes and sales orders area is both your current quotes, your open sales orders, your partially processed sales orders, and your past invoices, all together in this one area. Okay, as I said, from Driven, because a quote turns into a sales order, turns into an invoice. It's all out of that same area of information in Driven. Same with purchase orders. No matter what status the purchase order is in, that's what you're going to use as your area if you'd like to report on anything having to do with purchase orders. The products area, as it's called or as it's referred to, is what Driven calls a linked or registered product on a customer account. This means this has been something that is told to be tracked on a customer's record, either when I put in a new lead or when I was creating that customer file, or if you have items that are set to be serialized in Driven, then those get tracked as a product on a customer's account when they get invoiced to that customer. The documents area would show you detailed information about any particular documents that have been uploaded to either a lead or a customer account. Okay. All promotions would give you the opportunity to report on anything having to do with a marketing campaign or promotion within Driven. Okay. And then we have an area that says all leads and contacts, because there are actually two separate tables where we keep information in Driven. This area allows you to combine the two of those for potential reporting, because I want to see not only customers in Florida, but customers, leads, and anybody in the state of Florida, no matter what kind of an account they might be, whether they're a lead or a current customer. I have the capability to do that, but I must use the all leads and contacts area if I want to use that one. Let me scroll down a little bit here and show you a little bit more. The next one is our master item list. This is everything having to do with setting up items and parts within Driven, including services, assemblies, non-inventory items, and inventory items, if you want any detail on any of those. The tasks area are our task assignments, which are linked to leads or orders or work orders. So no matter where that task is linked, you can report on it here using the tasks option. We have the ability to report on anything within the knowledge base, pull up information and filter it based off that. Also specifically for vendors in our database as well, if you'd like to report on something for them. The serial numbers area designates serial numbers that are currently in your own building or warehouse. So in other words, they've been received through Driven or added as a serialized piece of equipment that has not yet been sold to a customer. So the serial numbers is going to show you anything that is still sitting in your warehouses, okay, available for sale, in other words. And then we have our sales pipeline area. If you want to pull reports based on that pipeline or projection area, you have the capability to do that using sales pipeline. The sales order line items is if you'd like to report on the specific detail of parts and items that are on orders or quotes for customers. And so this is the detail level of that sales order and quotes area. And last are service item invoices, any items that you've added to work orders that might be invoiceable to clients. So when you record technician time or add parts and supplies through a work order, that information is reportable here under the service items. So let's go ahead and start this. As I said, I want to do this as customers or qualified CRM contacts in the state of Florida. So I'm going to do this as an all contacts type of a report. Then I choose the types of fields that I would like on my output, what I want to see in my results, in other words. So I want to see, this first one is the account number, or that unique identifier for this particular account that Driven holds. It's not something that you guys see a ton on screen. It appears at the top of the screen every time you pull up an account or something. But if you'd like to, you can show that on the report. Typically, I'm going to put the account name. So I double-click on that. I click on it twice. We'll post it over to the right-hand side as a selected field. You also would have the capability to highlight that one or multiple things in here at a time. I want to see the city, yes, and I want to see the category, and I can push them over to the right-hand side as well. Maybe I also want to see, I don't care what country they're in, doesn't matter to me. I want to see their first name. I want to see the last contact date. When did we call them last? I want to see their last name. So I continue to pick and choose items in here as I would like to see them on the report. Okay. The member ID option is what is their record number within their company, because again, we can have multiple contacts at the same company. I might need to know what their record number is. That's the way of uniquely identifying them at their company. Maybe not something you're ever going to put on the report, but it's there an option for you. And whether or not that person is opted out, what each one of their 4 phone numbers are, their postal code or zip code, whether or not they're marked as the primary contact, what promotions or marketing campaigns they're a member of. Okay, so let's go ahead and put that. Who their sales rep is, what their sales territory is, their salutation, what their server location. Now, these options here for secure connection server location are 2 custom fields that I have added in my Driven that are linked to accounts. So in other words, if I go over here and I'm looking up my customers, prospects, and vendors, I see in here I've got a customer called Disney World. Just want to show you where this information is and why it's showing up in that report area for me. Under my custom fields menu, I have server location, date installed, and secure connection as custom fields that I have created linked to an account. So those fields are reportable directly from in here. And so if I want to see that server location custom field, I can add that to my report selections. Now, I also have the capability to rearrange the order of these, because obviously I want the first name and the last name next to one another. So I can click on last name and move it up or down in my display area of selected fields. So flexibility for you there as far as where you'd like things to show up and how you'd like them to show up. So I have selected my initial area of interest, picked and chosen the fields that I want to show up. Now I'm going to filter that information or tell Driven to qualify or pull out certain kinds of records, in other words. So here is where I would be able to say, I want to filter this based upon the state equaling FL. Now, options for you here when you're putting in a value. You can either manually type the value as I did here, or an option that's always available to you is to have Driven ask you when you run it. So that means every time you run this report, Driven will prompt you to enter the state criteria or enter whatever information you want to filter for here. This is useful for making a report customizable when you want to pull it for a certain date or a certain date range. And you don't want to manually come in here and put it in the building of the report. Just every time you run the report, you want it to ask you then. So you would put ask me when I run it in that area instead of an actual value. So this right now is my only criteria. I only want to see things where the state equals Florida. Nothing else is important to me, so I don't need to fill in any of my other filter options. Okay, so I'll leave the remaining parts of that blank. Now, down at the bottom of this, I typically would be able to total certain kinds of information on this report. Obviously, in a customer contact kind of report here, there are no fields available that are going to need to be totaled. No things that I can sum up or total at the bottom of a report. So that would not apply in this area. Now, last options here give me the capability to sort that information and or group that information. So maybe I want to sort this by the city, and I want to group it by the category that they're in, which might be prospects together and customers together. Okay. So I filled in all my criteria for this very basic report here. I'm going to save those changes, and now the report data has been set up. It's available now for anyone in the company who has the proper role to run that report. So anytime somebody comes into the reporting center, they would choose Run Report on this. It's going to show to them on screen how it's going to pull that information out. So the state is going to be equal to FL right now. And they have the option to either output it to the screen or output it to a file in a CSVXL type of a format. So the default is to output it to the screen. I'm going to choose to run the report right here, and that information is pulled up. So here, grouped together are my customers in Florida, okay, sorted by their city, which I put their city on here, okay. And then next, I have my prospects in here, sorted by their city. So this is only showing individuals right now. I see I have 37 records. Only showing me individuals that are qualified CRM contacts within my Driven setup. And I can see right here that the Barb shopping store has Joe Jones there and Barb Smith there. And Joe is a member of both the Tampa Trade Show. I must have linked it to him twice. And Barb's only a member of the Tampa Trade Show. Their sales rep is Barb, and there's no notes in their server location area. However, Mickey Mouse does have his set up as the office location is where his server is. So that was my custom field that I created and added to this report here. So then you have the flexibility to print this report if you'd like, just view it, look at it on screen, do whatever you want to with it. And that is setting up a very basic report within Driven. Now, let's come back and tell you about modifying that report and adding other kinds of criteria like the Ask Me When I Run It options and some more totaling or grouping options. So let's pull a different kind of report. When I go under Options and Utilities here in my reporting center, I want to pull a sales type report. Show me all the orders that I've closed in the past month of July. Okay. So we'll create that as a new report again, and we'll call this Sales by Month. Okay. We'll put it into a category. I'll modify the list again and put a sales as a category. Oops, didn't mean to press the enter button there. Meant to press the shift button. Okay, so we'll type sales as one of our options there. Save that. Put it into that sales category. It's going to be a multi-user report, and it's going to be available to the sales role, the manager role, or the executive role. The area or type of data that I'm interested in, we're going to scroll down and find that sales, quotes and sales orders option. Okay. Once I select my area, then the fields appear for me. So what I get to see on here. So I want to see maybe the balance due on that order, yes. I also want to see, I'm only going to look at confirmed orders, so I'm not going to put that on the report, but it's going to be part of my criteria down here. I want to see who the customer was, if there was a PO on it, yes, what the description was. IP address is one of my custom fields. I want to see the profit margin on it. Maybe I want to see the date it was quoted. how much the quote was for. Even when it becomes an order, that's going to be the total on it. Okay. And that's plenty of information for me. Okay. Oh, what we call the close date. This is the date it turned in from a quote to an order in Driven. So I do want to see that close date on there as well. So that's the kind of information that I want to see on my report. Here now, I'm going to put the selection criteria. So for this, I'm going to want to do two things. I'm going to want to make sure it's a confirmed order, and I want to be able to put in the date that I want to run it for. So here, I will put confirmed order equals true or yes. Okay. Here it shows you the kinds of results that are already in the database for that particular record. So right now there's some settings to yes, some to no, or I can choose ask me when I run it. So I will go ahead and say yes, because I only want to see things that are actual orders. I don't want to see proposals. Okay? So I want to do that, and I want to see where that order date or close date, as I called it, the date it became a sales order, is greater than or equal to, and in that one, I want to put ask me when I run it. Again, I see all the dates that are in those fields as of right now. So, but I don't want to input one of those directly. I want it to tell it to ask me every time. And those are my only two criteria then. So now, at the bottom of this particular report, I want to total the quote amount, yes. I also want to total the balance due so I can see how much that is. And I want to, I don't want to total the profit margin. That doesn't make sense to give me a total on the profit margin on the orders there. Okay. So I'm going to subtotal those two particular columns. I'm going to sort this by whatever I would like. Let's say that I want to sort it based on, I'm trying to do something so I can also group it and show you how that works. I want to group it by processing phase, and we'll sort it by close date. Where did my close date field go? There we go. So we'll sort it by that. So now let's go ahead and save this report here. See what happens when we run this kind of report. You must see it's giving me an error message here that if I'm grouping by the processing phase, I have to include it as part of my selected fields that I'm displaying. So I'm trying to group by something that I'm not even showing here. So go to processing phase, add it to the report, and put it at the beginning of the report. Okay. Then we'll save that, and it should save okay. Now I have two reports here. So when I want to run the sales by month report, it's prompting me here, okay, you're going to do the confirmed order equaling yes, and the close date, it's bright teal here to ask me to input a date field. So I'm going to do 2011, I have to do it in their format, 07-01. So anything after July 1st is what I want to see on here. Okay. And then I choose to run the report. So currently, in my sales by month, I have confirmed orders of this amount with a total balance due of $33.84.97. Okay. Their total quoted amounts were that, so obviously no payments have been made on these particular orders. And my subtotal of my processing, which I have one order in the processing phase, is $859.90. So my total balance due outstanding still to me for the month of July is $4,244.87. So very powerful tools for you in the totaling and grouping areas because, as I mentioned, it's going to subtotal based on the change of a group that you made. So because I grouped it by my confirmed order, That's what's giving me my subtotals for each one of those. Otherwise, I would have gotten just one general total at the bottom of this if I'd only sorted it and not grouped it. Okay. And again, I can print this, do whatever I want to with it visually on screen. If I want to, now that I've kind of looked at this and gotten the preview of it, I want to export it to Excel so I can do some other further things with it. So instead of Xing out of the top corner here, I'm going to X this bottom red X here, which is simply going to close me out of the preview. Takes me back to the main reporting center screen, and I can choose to run the report, but instead of outputting it to the screen, I can output it to Excel. Okay. And I'm again going to enter that same data criteria. Okay. Hit run. So it asks me now what I want to do with that. Do I want to open it directly with Excel or do I want to save it? So we'll open it to Excel. And Excel opens up my other screen here, guys. Now, it's not possible for us to sort and group things over to Excel the way that it processes this. So it is simply going to give me the raw data here with my field names on it. No PO numbers, apparently. But I can further go through this now in Excel and sort it and filter it and make pretty graphs on it and do some conditional reporting based upon whatever else I want to do with it. So it's now a fully functional Excel spreadsheet that I can use and do whatever I feel like. No, I'm not going to save that, close it out. I'm done with that particular report. Now, once you have designed reports and put in the criteria for them as well, there is an option also to be able to, instead of you having to create a report from scratch using the new reports, if you have a report that's very similar, okay, I want to see all customers in Kansas now, instead of having to redo that, I can copy the customers in Florida option, and it'll make a copy of that report, all the settings that were on that report, and I can say customers in Kansas. Okay. And for that one, I want to say equals to KS. Okay. So we will save that one. Now I've got customers in Kansas. When I run it, here we go. One person in Topeka. Okay. So that is our basics, guys, on how to create and run reports from within Driven. This is usually a short webinar, typically. Gives you some basics and gets you started. As I mentioned, probably one of the most technical things to get started with and get to know, get familiar with, is which type of data you're interested in. So as you're looking through these, like for instance, if I want to look through communications, it will show you the fields available in that particular area of Driven, and then you can begin outputting things. So I want to output, what is this? The customer name, I want to put the contact in, content, who the employee was, the length of it, when it started, what the subject was, what kind it was. If you're looking at seeing what kind of information this is, then you can do this. I can subtotal the length field. Okay. And this will be my communications report. Okay, we'll put it into a category of customers. We're going to make it executive level report only. Now, you'll notice I did not put any filter information in that. So when I run this report, it is going to pull the entire contents of that communications area. So everything that has been done as a communication entry shows up here. Right now there are 85 records in here with a total length of 1,503 minutes. Okay, because here I put in a service type entry that goes into the communication records as well. That's the amount of time we spent out there on a service entry. So we must have been there for 4 hours one time. Okay. So when you're just beginning to work around in the Driven reporting area, if you're not exactly sure what kind of information is going to be coming out of there, now be careful, because as you see here, this report might get kind of long, because depending upon what detail you're pulling, but this will pull all the information for you, and then from there you can determine, okay, I only want to see things that are not service type entries, because I only want to see true communications maybe. I can go back, edit that communications report, and I can say where the type, so my type field does not equal service. So that will eliminate those service type entries from this report now. Because I only truly want to see phone calls and emails and stuff, let's say. So then I run the report there, output it to the screen. Now I've got less records in here, a lot less time. Now all my length entries are 0. Okay. Any questions right now, everyone, regarding reporting within Driven? I know this is a listen-only type of webinar, but in your webinar panel, you should have the capability to type out a question if you'd like to, and I can try and answer as many of those questions as you like if you need. But this really kind of gives you some starting points for our reporting functionality in Driven. Okay. Doesn't appear as if there's any questions at the moment. I'll leave the webinar open for another moment or two in case anything comes up that you think of. If you'd like to type that in there, I can go ahead and answer or address those now. Otherwise, we do offer this session on a weekly basis if you'd like to attend it again once you get a little more comfort level with Driven, and then we can talk about some further issues. So you can see our training calendar and notice whenever we offer any of our webinars. We do schedule them on a regular basis if you'd like to attend. Thanks for attending and have a great afternoon.